While out sharpening this week, I actually ran across a shear that needed a little extra work on the inside. It had to be chamfered. I'm going to show you how to do that. Let's go take a look. Okay, I have an older Hikari here that needs some work done. You can actually see on the back side of the ride area where there's a big drop down from where the cutting edge starts at the early entry of the cut from where the top of the ride area is. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go ahead and go in and remove some material from the inside of this shear on both blades so I can reestablish a new ride line. There's not really a very good ride line on this shear. So I'm going to do this in parts so you can see how I correct something like this while in the field. So first I took the shear apart and I'm going to start the work on the ride area of the shear. So I start this process by clamping the shear into the twice as sharp clamp. And that way I'm going to be able to remove some material on the inside, actually in this case with a twice as sharp, because there's quite a bit that needs to be removed, so I can do that quicker with the aluminum oxide wheel than I can with the diamond wheel. Typically I do this with the diamond wheel if there's not a lot of work to be done. I also have the clamp set for about 65 degrees where the two parts of the clamp comes together. It forms a line, or 60 degrees, not 65. That's where you would set your angle. Anywhere from 50 to 55, 60, that's probably a good angle for working the inside because you want it fairly steep. So as you remove the metal, you're just bringing the metal down to where it aligns the backside of the ride area with the early entry of the cut. Probably won't be able to see what I'm doing perfectly here, but I have the clamp in the honing position so I can see the work that I'm doing. And I'm going to go ahead and remove some material. I'm going to take just a little bit off at a time. You don't want to do it quickly and all at once. You don't want to remove too much material. Now that I've removed the material from the shear, you can actually see where the backside of the ride area is going to line up with the early entry of the cut in the ride. So once I've done this now to this first blade, I'm going to go ahead and start on the second blade. Now that I've completed that process, I have a new ride line. It goes all the way up to the tip and across the backside of the top side of the ride area. It's not quite as thick as I like to have it at the ride area, but the ride line is fine for that. It's also a little thicker at the tip than I like, only because of the way the shear is now. Without re-hollow grinding the scissor, it would be very difficult to correct that completely. But in this industry, I've often said that you have to shoot for perfection and settle for excellence. So this is going to function much better as far as a blade is concerned. I'm going to do the same thing to the second one and then start the process of sharpening. So what I'm doing right now with this shear is I'm just touching up the back side of the angle. I actually have the fixture set for 45 degrees, and this was sharpened at 35 degrees, unfortunately, by someone else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of pre-corrective surgery on this and restart the full reconvexing process. And then over time I'm going to bring it back up to 45 degrees completely on the shear. Just probably not this time. I'm going to go ahead and reset my fixture for 40 degrees, which is a 5-degree increase over where we were, unfortunately. But what this will do is it'll prep me for the next time that I come, and I'll make a note on this, and that way I can go ahead and bring it up another 5 degrees to 45 the next time I sharpen it. So again, this isn't a perfect situation with a shear like this, but often in the field you run into stuff that's been so badly damaged that the only thing that you can do is really make it better. If you have a car that's all twisted out of shape, you're never going to be able to get the alignment back into absolute perfect condition again. But this is a few steps to help with being able to at least do some corrective surgery on the shear and make them function like they're supposed to from the factory. It may not be the prettiest job, but it certainly is a good functional job. So now that I've done my didn't have the plate all the way on there. Now that I have my process of going through my 30, 15, and 9 micron discs to go ahead and take some of the scratches off that I just created, I'm going to go ahead and do the polishing step. And after this, we'll put the shear back together. I always like to polish just the edge, about 8 to 10 strokes, just to make sure that I've got a good polish on the edge, and then we'll start the polishing on the convex portion of the shear to go ahead and smooth everything back out, make it look really good. Alright, so on the shear as well, I had to do a little bit of additional restoration and then replace the washers in it as well. The washers had gone bad in the shear and it was just making way too much noise because of it. So I went ahead, we'll test on tissue, good clean cut all the way to the tip. And then we'll test on here. I know there's a lot of arguments back and forth. Come on over. I know there's a lot of arguments back and forth on what medium to test on. I always test on here as my final test. I just want to make sure that functionally the shear is cutting properly. But I do like to test on tissue as well, because it does let me see things like tip catch and other things like that that I don't always catch as well when I'm checking with hair. What I'm doing when I'm checking for the hair cut test is I just want to make sure that I have a good clean cut all the way to the tip without any pushing, which this is a good clean cut, and the shear is good, ready to go back to the customer. I hope you found that helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Best way to get me is at my number below, or you can reach me by email below as well. This video was sponsored by On the Edge newsletter. There's a link to On the Edge below. It is a free newsletter that's available to all sharpeners. Just go ahead and take a look and see if it's something that you'd like to get. Go ahead and sign up for it. I think it'll help. We'll talk to you soon.